Okay, first of all, great job in your groups. I don't know about the Zoom people, but you guys did amazing. I came out and I was sensing the nice, focused energy, so I was very happy. That's the idea. Just do that and I'll be happy. And always remember to bring, right? You want to prepare for those groups, so you always want to bring with you a copy of your reading assignment or at least the bullet points so you have something to share, right? Always bring that. But it was very nice, very professional. Good job. Okay, before we get into the text, I want to get into some of your comments, which were pretty good. In your reading assignments, a lot of you noticed no women in the text, right? We're entering the Greek era, which is a very male-centered era. Plato, however, shows a little bit of flexibility since he has a woman come towards the middle. I don't know if you noticed, but Diotima, the woman who inspired Socrates, well, she's a woman, right? So we do have one woman, but we will see next time when we study her that her presence is a little bit problematic. Like I have some issue with the way that she is speaking or if she's allowed to speak, right? So even this woman trying, right, even though there's a woman, there is still some hurdles. And we're going to see some of the problems with the way that Socrates channels Diotima, right? We're going to talk about it. But Plato made an effort. He put one woman in there. That's good. But you're right. Whoever wrote about this, I think it was a number of you, it is a very male-dominated discourse. And of course, some of you were like, well, how can you talk about gender relations, just men, right? So you're right. So we will still try to trudge through some of these texts because even men have wisdom, right? I know we always criticize dead white men, but you know, a lot of them are really good. We have to acknowledge that. The only issue is they're not the only ones who are good, right? That's the problem. But, right, we want to also learn from them. So we will be going over these guys. So yes, that's the first problem you noticed rightfully in the text. Second thing, a lot of you noticed, and I hadn't noticed this, but this is really good. There's no discussion. They each present, right? And then it's like nobody really, it's like no one is really absorbing what the other is saying. They're just parading, right? And that's true. I hadn't thought of that. Except Socrates, but even there, it's a pseudo-dialogue, right? Socrates has been criticized for that. It's a pseudo-dialogue when if you saw a little bit further, he's dialoguing with Agathon. It's a kind of a bullying dialogue, right? He kind of bullies him through this dialogue. And in the end, Agathon comes out this small. We're going to talk about that today, right? So you're right. There is an issue here. It's called the Dialogues of Plato, but is it really a dialogue, right? So yeah, I agree with you. Although we can give Plato credit for having many different perspectives for us to choose from. But you're right, there's no interaction, there's no real listening, right, among the members of the party. That makes sense. Some of you noticed Socrates as the only one who seemed important. You're right, right? Plato always features Socrates as the path to truth. And, you know, for those of you who didn't like that, next time we meet, we will criticize Socrates. So we're going to bash him a little, bully him a little like he did with Agathon. Okay, some of you were perplexed with the same-sex atmosphere of the dialogue, and it's normal. Like for us, it's still an issue, right? We're still struggling with whether it's moral or not. In the Greek times, it was perfectly natural, right? It was, and you can see in the text, considered a superior relationship to that of the, it's upside down, right? Just like our society still considers, right, heterosexual relationship superior to homosexual relationship. Here is flipped, right? It's interesting. They're actually, and we'll talk about why they thought so, the homosexual relationship superior to the heterosexual relationship. So we're going to talk about why they think like that, right? So it's a different culture, very different from ours, right? So it's like I told you, right? It's a travel abroad class. So you're going to enter into cultures that are different from what you're used to, and which is good. It's always good to do that. Okay, I think I covered some of your stuff. Any questions, burning questions before we get in the text, or comments or things you want to add? Okay. All right, let's go. So I'm going to talk about three people today. I have picked three characters from this dialogue. We're going to start with Pausanias, Pausanias, Pausanias. Then we'll talk about Aristophanes, Aristophanes. and we'll end with Agathon, Agathon. Okay? So, now, as I begin this class, I want you to tell me, at the end of class, I want you to follow carefully because we're going to see that these three guys actually sound very similar. There's one guiding thread. There is one common denominator between these three guys. Even though they sound very different, there's something that they have in common, and I want you to catch that. Okay, so as I'm talking, I'm going to describe each one. We're going to try and explore, get something from each one, no matter how remote they feel, right? We're going to try and gather some of the gems from their discourses. But at the end, I'm going to ask you, okay, what do they have in common? And then I will listen and see if you caught it. Okay, so let's begin. Pausanias, he distinguishes between two kinds of love. What are they? Who can tell me? Two kinds of love. Yes. Common love and heavenly love. Let's go there. Page 13. All right, let's go there. So common love, heavenly love. Okay, common love, by which he means vulgar, by which he means low, primitive, right? And then heavenly love is better, elevated, higher, right? Okay. So when you're suffering from the common love, right? Who do you tend to fall in love with? What kind of people? There's two kinds. Two kinds of people you're going to be attracted to when you're a common type of lover, when you're vulgar and low. What are they? What kind of people you're gonna fall in love with or be attracted to? Guzman, you look like you know. Yes, and one more. So women, right? When you fall in love with women, you are now guilty of the common love. And there's one more person you tend to fall in love. Yes.
It says that they're attracted to partners with least possible intelligence.
With sorry, who?
Least possible intelligence. Does that mean like people who aren't as smart as them?
Yes. So younger boys, right? So not adult men like them. Young boys. Now I see some shocked expressions. Let's clarify right now. Right? The younger boys are at least 18 years old, right? Not below. Right, in general, when they talk about younger boys, they're talking about, I think in the introduction I mentioned this is a party, coming of age party. And the people invited at that party are the seniors in high school, and they're about to enter the political life. So they're not going after 12-year-olds, right? I don't think so. These guys are going after more mature, but still immature, right? Since their intelligence is not developed, but they're not children, in other words, right? They're not going after children. So yes, younger boys in the sense of 18, 19 years old, right? Early 20 years old. Okay, I hope that clarified that. I know some of you are like, ah! It's okay, you're gonna survive. You're gonna survive. Okay, so why? Why is loving a younger boy or a woman, first of all, the same? And why is it considered lower love? What's the problem? In other words, what are you really attracted to when you love a woman or when you love a younger boy? What is it that you're really falling in love with, Wozniak? Exactly, right? So I'll explain. If you love a woman, certainly not going to be her mind. Why? Because women at the time were not educated. So they don't know anything about, literature, philosophy, metaphysics. So what are you going to talk about? Nothing. Right? So at that point, it's not the conversation that's going to draw you in. Clearly, so what's drawing you in? Her body. Right? And so at that point, you're just loving her body, which puts you where in terms of the cave? Inside or outside? Cave, Plato's cave. Inside. You're stuck in the material realm. All you are attracted to is the material body, the material advantages, right? This woman is not going to elevate you, right? Is not going to elevate your mind, is not going to elevate your spirit because she's simply not at the same level as you. On the contrary, she'll bring you down, right? Back in the cave. What about the young boy? Same problem, by the way. Young boy, what's the problem with a young boy? So it's a man, but what's missing? Yeah? Exactly. Young boy still coming out of high school. You're 40 years old. What are you going to talk about with this 17-year-old, right? Nothing. So what are you in it for? The body, right? Again, where are you? In the cave or outside of the cave? You're back in the cave. This boy drawing you back in the cave, right? Because all you're seeing now is the body. and your mind is clouded over with this attraction for the body. So that's why Pausanias is saying, here is the lower love, and Plato probably would agree. Although Plato less misogynistic, right? But Plato would agree with a higher love, lower love, physical or intellectual love, right? We know that from the story of the cave. So that's basically the idea. Now, what can we learn from this story, right? We're very remote, of course, from culturally. Some of us, not all, but some of us are very remote culturally from this setup. So, but what can we still learn from this discourse? I think if we even go to page, what is that number? 16, right? We have some indications of what we can learn, but tell me right now, what can you learn from this idea? Now, before we go, what can we learn? I forgot to talk about higher love. Higher love, who do you fall in love with in general? When you're a higher lover? Well, what's left? Exactly. Man, not just your age, a man who is older, right? And why is this the higher love? Why is loving an older man a higher love, according to Pausanias? Exactly. Now you're drawn, clearly not to their body, right? At that age is not that great, but you're drawn, you must be drawn to something, and that thing certainly is the intellect, the maturity, the spiritual depth, right? And so now this man, in and out of the cave, taking you out towards higher ideals, higher preoccupations, right? You're leaving the cave of the strictly material preoccupations for intellectual pursuits, spiritual pursuits. You're now in the higher realm of love, right? That's pretty much the idea in Pausanias. Okay, now let's bring it to ourselves. What can we learn here in Queens, right? In the 21st century from this guy? What's he got to teach us? What can we learn in the way that we navigate our relationships?
I think we should fall in love with someone that's similar-minded or intelligent.
Okay, very good, right? It's simple, right? Simple advice. When you fall in love, make sure it goes beyond the physical. Physical is fine, right? You need that, but make sure you also have intellectual attraction, spiritual attraction, emotional attraction, right? So that when the body begins to fade, what is left? What's left when the person starts to get older and it's not so great? What is left that you can still love? The mind, right? And so that's the idea. And so he's basically giving us, in a way, the secret to lasting love. If you want your love to last, choose wisely. It's very different from the Song of Songs, right? Song of Songs, they didn't choose wisely. They just threw themselves in the relationship and kind of, swam through it or trudged through it. And in the end, right, we saw that just sheer perseverance, right, and the humility to change. We saw this is what created lasting relationship. Here, the Greeks are very different. The Greeks are more cautious than the Hebrews, right? The Greeks are going to say, you want lasting love? Number one, choose wisely, right? If you choose wisely, you have a good basis. In other words, when you look for a partner, make sure that your attraction is more than just physical chemistry, that you actually have also intellectual chemistry, shared values, spiritual chemistry. That is the guarantee that your love will last, according to Pausanias, right? Okay, here's the quote. Go to page 16. There's like no light here. Okay, I'm going to read at the top. A bad man, fourth line from the top. So here's describing a bad man, a man who doesn't know how to love in an elevated way, right? A bad man in this connection is the lover of the common type, right? Bad man if you love in that way. Who loves the body rather than the mind. And then this is the problem with this man. Problem with this is that this man is not constant because he loves something that is not constant, right? When you fall in love and the things you love in the person are things that will go in time, you're in trouble, right? Because when those things go, boom, you're done, right? This is why so many relationships, after a while, they dissolve, right? Because like, okay, well, it's not so good anymore. It's not there anymore, what I loved in you, right? So then he continues. As soon as the bloom of the body fades, which is what attracted him, he flies away and is gone, right? Bringing disgrace on all he said and promised. And now here's the line you underline. But the man who loves goodness of character is constant throughout his life, since he has become united with something constant. Okay, so that's the idea. Basic advice, smart advice. I'm going to first praise these guys and then we shall dismantle them. But for now, this is good advice. You want lasting relationship? Choose wisely. Somebody with whom you can have, somebody with, how do I say this? Their attributes that you fall in love with are constant, not just the physical, also the intellectual or the emotional or the spiritual. Okay, good. All right, we got a little bit of advice that we can store away. Let's go to Aristophanes. Aristophanes tells us a story at the beginning of his discourse. What is this story that Aristophanes tells us? Does anybody remember? Want to summarize it? Nobody remembers? I'll give you the page, 23. Yeah, I think that's where it is. Okay, what is this funny story he talks about how we used to be at the beginning of time?
That we were stuck together, and then we were cut in half, essentially.
Exactly.
We spent our lives trying to find that other half.
Exactly right. Originally, all of us were bound to our soulmate. This is where the theory of the soulmate comes from, right? This idea that originally I was one with my soulmate. And then something happened and boom, we were separated. And now they are somewhere in Afghanistan, I'm over here in China, and we have to find our way back to each other, right? And so this is a theory of the soulmate, right? And a lot of us intuitively connect to this theory, right? A lot of us, if I ask you, you will tell me, yeah, I do feel like there's someone for me out there, specifically designed for me, right? That is out there. Some of us have given up, I know. Some of us have given up on the soulmate, like there is no soulmate, there is no love, right? Some of us are like that, but a lot of us are still very idealistic, thinking, I know there's someone out there for me, and if I could just find them, right? So let's assume this is true, that there is a soulmate out there. The $1,000,000 question would be, what? How to recognize them, right? Because the problem is soulmate is out there, but we miss them. And you know so many people who did that. They end up married with the wrong person, they're stuck, right? And they don't want to, even they find their soulmate, they're still stuck, right? So you can watch many marriages, right? Where it seems like they have missed each other's soulmates. Clearly they are not each other's soulmates, right? They're just trying to make it work as the kids or the family or whatever, right? So we are in danger, according to this idea, of missing our soulmate. And so the $1,000,000 question is, how do I make sure I identify them so they don't pass me by, right? Now, the text gives us some clues how to identify the soulmate, but it's subtle, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read. He's describing the soulmate. I'm going to read randomly through a couple pages. I want you to listen. There's a theme that repeats itself as to what the soulmate looks like. So are you ready? Okay? You just tell me when I'm done reading, what do you hear over and over again as to what the soulmate looks like? And then we shall know. Okay, so let me start here. I'm reading between pages, if you want to know, between pages 25 and 27, but I'm skipping around. All right, so he's describing the soulmate. On page 25, he says, yes, talking about the male gender cut from the male, says it's not out of shamelessness that they do this, but because they're bold, brave, masculine, and welcome the same qualities in others. They're always welcoming their shared natural character. Continuing. Meets that very person who is his other half and is overwhelmed. Why? Because it is the pursuit of wholeness. And now page 27 is the best. That is, right, the key is to find a loved one who naturally fits your own character, who is naturally close to us, and who restores us to our original nature. What does the soulmate look like, based on a few passages I've read? Yes? So yes, we're attracted to them powerfully, but why? What do they look like? What is it in them that attracts us so powerfully? Huh?
They look like ourselves.
Sorry?
They look like ourselves.
Exactly. Like attracts like, right? It's not opposites attract here. We're in Greek. Greek culture. Like attracts like. In other words, and this is so important, you can only identify your soulmate if you know who you are. Now, let me go deep because this is very profound, actually, right? Soulmate is a reflection of yourself. Now, if you don't know who you are, can you identify the soulmate? No, right? And so here's the advice that Aristophanes is giving us subtly. Before you can find your soulmate, you first have to find yourself. Until you have found yourself, you will go from relationship to relationship, not understanding why it's always going wrong. Because you don't know who you are, therefore, you don't attract your soulmate. In other words, soulmate is someone we attract. Once you know who you are, boom, they enter your atmosphere. As long as you don't know, you're going like, oh, let me try this. We never know who, we'll see. We'll make it work. No, right? I mean, of course, Song of Songs would disagree with me, obviously, right? But here in the Greek context, right, the advice is be careful. Become who you are. Develop yourself to your highest potential, because only then will you be able to attract your likeness. Now, here's the downside. As long as you haven't found yourself, as long as you are the mediocre, low version of yourself, what kind of soulmate you're going to attract? Like attracts like. Well, who are you going to attract if you all messed up?
Messed up person.
Exactly. So if you were in a messed up relationship and you wondered why, look inside. Right? Anytime you're in a messed up relationship with a messed up person, guess what? You messed up too. That's why. Like attracts like means at the level where I'm at, I'm going to attract. And so if you're always attracting jerks, right, look inside. What is it in me that is attracting these people, right? We are sometimes, as long as it doesn't mean you're a jerk, but simply means maybe part of you is still broken. So you're attracting broken people who you call jerks, right? But they're simply broken, right? So this is very powerful because if you want to attract someone amazing, become someone amazing, right? I had a friend, I hope she never listens to this because she's going to recognize herself. She's in a kind of like middle age crisis, right? Single, kind of still with her husband, but not sure, right? And so she was telling me one point, she's like, man, here's the type of man I want. She had this list. Oh my God, I don't think they make men like that. Or women. He has to be, you know, secure, financially secure, a good person, loving, caring, responsible, no flaws. I didn't see a single flaw in this. I don't know where this guy is. Send him to me, right? Perfect man. And her? Very imperfect, very broken, struggling. Impossible. That man never gonna come in her ellipse, never gonna come in her orbit. You want to attract someone valuable, become someone valuable. It's as simple as that. That's what Aristophanes is saying. Like attracts like. You messed up, you will attract messed up. You're broken, you will attract broken. You're whole, you will attract whole. You're prosperous, you will attract prosperous. You're feeling good about yourself, you'll attract somebody just as confident. And so the advice here, especially if you're single, perfect. Now you can actually work on yourself. Really go deep, heal yourself, educate yourself, make yourself whole, because that is the best way to attract your soulmate. If you continue all broken to go into relationship after relationship, you will just accumulate skeletons in the closet, right? The best advice, if you feel like you're attracting broken people, stop, right? Stop, look at yourself, do some healing thing for a year or two, and then watch who comes in your orbit. Totally different, right? That's the soulmate, right? Soulmate, way I explain it, there's not one fixed person. Soulmate just reflects you. You're good, they're good. You're bad, they're bad, right? That's your soulmate. So that's the idea. Any questions on this particular issue? This is a very, very profound truth that I'm happy I learned from Aristophanes personally. Notice how prudent these Greeks are. Song of Songs, soulmate, Yeah, we become each other's soulmate, right? Through hard work, suffering, and pleasure, right? So these guys, when you see them, notice these two people, they're messed up, both equally, right? But they make it work, right? Very different from the Greek who says, no, first sit here, make yourself whole, and then enter the relationship. See how cautious they are, right? And this is also good advice, right? Either one actually works. Remember, there's two paths. You can take either one. You can take the Hebrew path and make it work. You can also choose to take the Greek path. Works too. Very excellent advice, but we'll see there's something missing. We'll see that when we talk about the common denominator. But definitely excellent advice. So now let's go. Sorry, go ahead.
So I had also had a question about that passage as well. Because I also didn't quite, I don't know, I guess the way that you're explaining it now makes me feel like maybe I misinterpreted what he was trying to say, because it sounded like he thought that by finding the other person, by finding your soulmate, that you would then become whole.
Yes.
That you would like you need to be like half of yourself and then someone else completes you. But I agree more with yours of saying you have to be whole first and then you come together. So
You're closer to the text than I am, right?
okay.
I extrapolated, right? I extrapolated. But she's right, right? You're a half, you will attract your other half, together you will be whole, but still I will maintain for Aristophanes, you still have to be your half, right? Be you if you want to attract your other. But you're a little closer to the text than I am, right? I tend to, what I'm doing often is I take the text and then I go into a whole explanation which I feel is more relevant based on the text. But this is, of course, exactly what the text is saying. Oh, sorry, absolutely. So I'm just extrapolating a little bit.
Okay.
I hope you guys notice too, right? Don't let me fool you like this. Don't let me lead you astray. I do that a lot. Okay, very good. Now, let's get to Agathon. So let's remember who Agathon is. Who is Agathon? Is he an old guy or a young guy? First of all, let's classify him. Yes. Mm-hmm. What kind of young? Like, why is he called on to talk? Why they let him talk? Yes, Agathon probably very wealthy. His father is probably very powerful. He's hosting the party. So he's the prize, right? He's the prize of the evening. And he knows it. You can see this guy. He's like a rooster, right? He's walking around. You know? And so they let him talk. And he should have refused, right? Based on what is going to happen next. He really should have said, nah, you guys talk. I'll just listen. No, he talks. He accepts, which is a terrible mistake, considering that he's young. And we already know from Pausanias that he's therefore clueless, right? But no, he accepts. And let's go a little bit now into what he says and see. So you will notice as we go through this speech, the discourse of Agathon, how quickly, what's the word? When you're in society and you can't read the room and you make like terrible mistake, like more than that. That's the idea. What is it when you put your foot in your mouth? Or what's a better expression? I don't like that expression. Like you make a blunder, social blunder. Does that make sense to you guys? Is there like a Queen's way of saying this, social blunder? You guys don't have people who come in the room and they don't know how to read the room and they make a fool of themselves? How you call those people? Okay. Fool. A fool. Right? So basically this is what Agathon does. He stands up, clearly did not read the room, and makes a complete fool of himself. And we're going to see that in this speech. So he begins. Go to page, what's this number? 29. He begins, I claim. First mistake. What's the mistake? Talking to a bunch of philosophers. I claim. Where's the problem here already? Already, we know. This is not going to go well. Yeah. Yeah, you have to argue. I argue. No, I claim. What does he know? He's 17, right? I claim. So we already see, right? That's kind of pompous, like a little bit arrogant, right? I claim. And then he continues. Though all the gods are happy, love if it is proper to say this and does not cause offense, is the happiest. Why? Because it is the most beautiful and best. So far, so good. Now here's where it's downhill. He's most beautiful for this reason. Why? Why is love beautiful? Based on the text? Tell me. Huh?
It says
Because it's the youngest, right? Youngest of the gods. So now he's saying beauty is youth. Has he been listening, right, to anything these other guys talked about? And so he continues, right, goes deeper and deeper into the mess he has created. Love naturally hates old age, few lines further, and keeps his distance from it. He always associates with the young and is one of them. And he goes on and on talking about how love is attracted to youth because youth is beautiful. Basically, what he's telling them is that you want to find love? Love me. I will give you everything you need. I am youth. I am beautiful, right? You want to find love? You need some youngin', right, to help you discover love. Let me teach you, right? I know I am love and I am beautiful, right? So basically saying to these older guys, right, if you guys want to find, you know, a real loving relationship, you need to love me. I'll show you, right? I'll give you what you want. I'll give you what you need. Okay, big problem. Well, first of all, where is Agathon after you've read a little bit of this? Is he in the cave or outside of the cave? What has he just proved? Exactly. By speaking, he has just shown everybody present how deeply entrenched he still is in the cave, right? Agathon talking like a caveman, right? He's like, oh, youth is what matters. You should love youth. Didn't listen to a word that Pausanias said, right? About how, no, higher love is not youth, right? So doesn't read the room, is rude, and deeply entrenched in the cave. And we see that when Socrates arrives on the scene, which is what you'll read, maybe I think it was today or next time, Socrates comes up, creeps up on him, right? And we know, if you read other Platonic dialogues, when Socrates arrives and asks you, can I ask you a question? You know this is bad news, right? Anytime Socrates comes up innocently and said, oh, I loved what you said. Now, can I ask a few questions? You know it's the end for you. It's the death sentence. Because if you read further, right, I think maybe we can go over that briefly right now and you can read it later. Socrates will dismantle every single thing Agathon said, right? So you can read that at home. He will basically show that Agathon didn't know what he was talking about, that he was contradicting himself. And in the end, Agathon is dismal, right? In the end, Agathon basically tells him, you know what, Socrates, whatever. That's basically the queen's response, you know, whatever. Let's just say you're right? He's completely humiliated, right? Anyway, so then Socrates, of course, will continue with Diotima. So read that and see how he slowly tears him apart and really humiliates him, right? And we'll talk next time why he did that. Okay, so now I think we're ready to go over the common denominator. Anybody notice the common thread, the common denominator in all three speeches we talked about? They all have good advice, right? Even Agathon, to a certain degree, we shouldn't, destroy him too much because all of us, in a way, have a little Agathon inside, right? All of us long to just be loved. That's Agathon. He's just trying to draw the attention to himself because he wants to be loved. And don't tell me you've never tried that, right? We've all tried to draw attention to ourselves so we can be loved. So we all have a little bit of Agathon, right? We can't hate him too much because we all have a little bit of that, right? So, common denominator. What did you see that these three guys, what's missing in these three discourses? Yes, sing. Okay. You look like you had a hand up. What is missing? What do you feel is like missing in the whole discourse? You can also think in terms of how different it is from the Song of Songs, right? What is different here? What's missing? Who's not there, right? Apart from the woman, right? Who's not there? Who's not speaking? Who's absent from this whole discourse on love? What's the center? See if any of you got it. Let's go over step by step. Pausanias. Make sure when you love that you choose wisely, so love elevates you. Aristophanes. Make sure when you love that you build yourself up good so that you attract the right person for you. Aristophanes. Love me. Okay. All three are saying kind of the same. Who matters? Yes. Okay, say that louder.
It's not talking about the partner in the relationship.
Yes. It's all about the self. Okay, be careful when you love for you. Make sure, number one, choose wisely so you get a good partner. Build yourself up, not for the other to make them feel better. No, 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 no. So you attract the right person, right? And then Agatha is the ultimate narcissist, right? There's no other at all, right? Right. So we have here this common denominator is this. The self is at the center of all three discourses. Everything that we're doing is for the sake of the self. Did you notice that? That's incredible. Everything we're doing, all the things we're working on, all the things we're looking for, is for the sake of the self. Let me make sure I find someone who elevates me intellectually so I can rise out of the cave. Let me make sure I build myself up, so make sure I attract the right person for me so I don't end up with a jerk, right? Let me become amazing so then I attract someone amazing. Then Agatha, the ultimate, right, narcissist. So what's missing here is the other. And look at some of the problems that are emerge, right? Look at Pausanias. What happens if you're with Pausanias, if you're partner with Pausanias, what happens in the relationship when all of a sudden, and it happens, you don't edify? Your beloved doesn't edify you anymore. Your beloved brings you down. Happens, right? They edified you for a season, but now they're bringing you down. They're going through something, right? They're always crying in a corner, right? Or they lost their job. They're sitting at home playing video games, right? They bring you down. What happens when your beloved starts to bring you down? According to Pausanias, what should you do? Exactly. They're not bringing. This not working, right? So with Pausanias, the beloved always has to edify me. What happens when they don't edify me? Well, it's clearly not the right person then. I made a mistake, right? Because my beloved, I need to choose the right person who will edify me, right? And if you don't edify me, clearly you're not the one for me. This is the problem, right? We are now in a situation where the lover, the beloved, right, is not given any oxygen to sometimes, and they will, and you will, right, bring each other down. It will happen. So what then, right? So in Pausanias, right, you're so careful to make sure they always edify me that as soon as you see a flaw, you're out, right? You're dating for a few months and now you locate the fatal flaw. Ooh, this is bringing me down. And you're out of the picture, right? So this is the issue here. There's no room for the other to make mistakes. There's no room for the other to sometimes need my love, right? So other is missing. Aristophanes is the same. If the beloved is supposed to reflect me, what happens when all of a sudden the beloved doesn't act or think like me anymore? All of a sudden they vote for someone you're like horrified. Happened. Right? What happens when your beloved all of a sudden starts to think differently, like different things, vote differently, change the religion? Now are you still with your soulmate? No. Now they're two different. And many of us make this mistake too. We're dating a little bit. We come home the first night. We're like, ooh, I love this person. We love all the same music. We love all the same books. Happens, right? Next few dates happens, and then you're like, oh my God, they're a Republican. I didn't know that. Or they're a Democrat. You know, it's like, this is not going to happen. Cannot happen, right? Right? As soon as a difference creeps up, we panic, right? We cannot be together because we are too different. Why? Right? Song of Songs, nobody more different than these two people, right? They make it work. But us, very Greek-minded that we are, as soon as a difference creeps up, we panic. Oh no, it's not going to work. Or our partner, I've seen that, divorces over religious, the beloved switches religion. Oh, no. What, you want to become a Buddhist? But we're Christian. What about Jesus? So, and we go on, right? And we will separate over these political, religious differences that will always creep up, right, in the marriage or in a relationship. We don't know how to deal with difference in our civilization. Why? Because we are Greek, right? We have been heavily influenced by Greek civilization. And so we have a real issue with otherness, with difference. We do not know how to interact with difference. Just look at our political system. Are we talking? No, right? There is no conversation. If you're a Democrat, I can bet several dollars, right? Several $100 that you don't have one single Republican friend and vice versa, right? So we don't, this is very typical of the Greek mindset that has infiltrated our community, our society. We don't know how to approach difference. Difference enters the land through the border and we're like, oh, we get scared, right? Anytime something different arrives, different color, different culture, we freak out because we're so Greek, right? We do not know how to interact with difference. And this is a huge problem also in our relationships, right? We do not know. The person changes and we're like stuck and horrified at what is happening. There's a great image that I heard on a YouTube video talking about marriage as motorcycle riding. How many of you ever rode a motorcycle? Okay, one, that's it? Okay, you know when you're in a motorcycle and person's back of motorcycle, when you turn, you have to lean that way, right? A lot, if you're going fast, right? You have to really lean down. Now, what happens if your partner in the back doesn't lean with you? You go in there, they go in there. What happens to the motorcycle? It's over, right? You crash. So we don't learn to lean in with our partners, right? They're leaning, and we're like, oh, hell no, right? And so we crash. If we learn to lean in, they're leaning, okay, I'll lean. All right, they're leaning that way, okay, I'll lean. We don't know how to do this dance, right? We don't know how to dance, period. Look, go to any club, everybody dancing alone, doing their own thing, right? There's no, right? We don't learn how to dance with each other anymore. This is a huge gap, right, in our civilization. We don't learn how to adapt. They go this way, I go that way. They go this way, I go that way. I suggest all of you learn to dance with a partner. This is a great life lesson, right? So that's the problem. And that's what's missing in Aristophanes. The difference, no room for the difference to creep up. As soon as the difference creeps up, we decide, we decree, that cannot be my soulmate. I made a mistake, right? Why not, right? No, because for the Greeks, like attracts like. You not like me, we done, right? Very different from the Hebrew, where you have these massive differences, right? And yet they're still, with difficulty, it's true, right? I mean, your parents' advice, right? I know they advise you like this, right? To pick someone of your own culture, your own religion is very good advice. I agree with them. But you can also take another path and it can work out. It's harder, right? But it's possible, right? And in the Hebrew culture, actually, it's recommended for you to pick someone totally different so you can really learn and grow, right? We saw this with the Song of Songs. But, so I'm giving you great comebacks for your parents. You say, well, the Bible, right, says we should date different people, right? So, but it's true. But at the same time, it's also good advice. Pick someone like you, less problems. But what we're learning here is that there's two ways to do this. You can pick someone like you, shortcut to happiness and bliss, right? But if you pick someone very different, doesn't mean it's not going to work. We saw this in the Song of Songs. They're radically different. Different ethnicity, different race, probably different religion, different gender. That's the worst. Different gender is the worst. It's almost impossible, right? And yet they figure out a way, right? And we talked about that last time. Okay. And of course, the last one, Agathon, right? We know as soon as you're only thinking about what you're getting out of it, is the beginning of the end, right? If you go into love thinking, oh, I go into love to get this, and then you stop getting this, you're done, right? End of story. We need to start learning to think of love like something I have to offer rather than something I have to get, right? Very often we suffer. By the way, you want to stop suffering in love? Here's the key I'll tell you. We suffer because we come in the relationship with the idea, I need to get. And when we don't get, obviously we suffer. But if you flip it and you come in the relationship, I'm here to give. No more suffering. You're here to give. You always give. You're fine, right? So that's a very important shift. If you want to suffer less, right? If you want to actually navigate relationships with grace, it's very helpful to think in terms of, what do I have to bring? I am here to bring you something rather than getting something out of it, like Agatha, right? Okay, very good. All right, next time, diotima. And we're going to see how Socrates ruins everything. Okay? So prepare for that. Try to see already how he ruins everything. We're going to talk about this. How he literally ruins Diotima's speech. That's the reading I will give next time. We'll do Diotima, what we can learn from her, and how Socrates ruins everything. So next time you just have to do the reading assignment, and that's it. And remember to prepare for the groups by having the printout or a copy, right, of what you're going to talk about in the groups. All right, guys, I'll see you. If you still have questions, you can stay. If not, you can go. Stop the recording.